Night second place finisher. Plenty of fans here, Brett, and a solid second place finish.
Yeah, I got to shout out the Turn 2 Terror Boys over there. They're all a bunch of good guys to hang out with, talk to. I really like them.
What's going on, everyone? Turn 2 Terribles here. It is February 6th, 2023. I'm Jimmy Barr. I'm joined here with Chris Lynn and Jeremy Zarfos. We got a couple special guests tonight. We got Wyatt Hinkle, 358 driver from, it usually runs at Lincoln Speedway. And we also are supposed to have Travis Garner, who is also betterly known as Chalk Guy. We're also going to talk a little bit about, we were at Racing Xtravaganza this past weekend, about what we saw there. And we also finally get to talk a little bit about some racing. We finally get some real, tangible racing this week. All at Volusia this week. They're practicing right now. So pretty cool. Guys, how you guys doing?
I'm good. Everything's great. How are you?
I'm amped.
Hey, man. Can't complain at all. Excited for this. We'll probably have a little bit of a switch up in the schedule. Looks like we might have Wyatt Hinkle join us first. We think Chalk Guy, he works third shift, so he might still be asleep. We're going to find out here not too long. He gets up, I think he starts work at like 11 p.m., so he may have missed an alarm or 7. But we're going to get Wyatt on here.
Yeah, we're gonna get Wyatt on here.
We don't play favorites, so 50-50 here. We'll get Wyatt on. Tell us a little bit about his background. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. Well, let's get right to it because Wyatt is here.
All right.
Let's bring him on in. Wyatt Hinkle, how you doing?
How's it going, guys? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Got
hear
you,
you.
buddy. How you doing,
Sweet,
man?
Sweet. Oh, doing pretty good. How are you?
Good, buddy. Hey, thanks for joining us, man. Late notice here. Kind of switched it up this weekend. Saw you at Racing Xtravaganza in York. Kind of walking around with us and put this together here at last minute. So we appreciate that very much. We're gonna start this off kind of like we do every week with everybody because there's been very few that we know all the background on. So, and even if we did, we're gonna ask you anyway because it's not about us. So, tell us a little bit about your background, man. Family history in racing, if any. Kind of where you got your start and how you got where you are today.
So for us, pretty much, I grew up around racing since time I was a baby as the track. My dad raced in 1991, ran 410s, and then also ran 358s in 2004, one season each time. But that was just with us. My oldest brother, actually, in elementary school, ended up being in the same class as Danny Dietrich. And so that's like how we really got into like the week to week, going to pits, helping and stuff like that. So that we did that for years. Then around 2013, we saw a car over the Dietrichs. I was at the time 13, and it was just kind of the right time. My dad's like, you want to do it? And I said, well, of course. I grew up around it. It's what I always wanted to do. So kind of went on a whim there and, got a car, got a motor. So then 2014, we started to hit some practices and stuff. And then we were starting to kind of see that Trailways was having a little bit of a low car count. And so we're like, we're going to pay to practice and stuff. We might as well go over there. You'll get some time around cars and stuff like that, and also, pick up a little bit of money the other night instead of just paying to do it. So that's how it really started. That first year, just focused on learning and stuff like that. I actually ended up the very last race of that year, picked up our first win. So that was a really cool thing. My closest brother to me actually came on and started helping with us that year, and so that was like his third week helping. It was just cool to it was all family. Had a whole bunch of family that actually ended up being there. So for being our first year, picking up a win, and it being a special one like that.
The first win at Trailway, is that where it was?
Yeah, that was our first win. So I guess I should have kind of got back to the point that never really raced anything else. Just grew up working on sprint cars and stuff. So never did like the micros to the 305s or anything like that. Just kind of jumped headfirst into it. But I'm kind of glad we did that, just because it was one of those things that didn't have to like break any habits ever or anything like that. I never got kind of like stuck into one thing. You just jump right into it. Of course, the learning curve is huge for that. But
I was going to say, you don't hear too much of that. You hear people come up usually through a couple different divisions before they get into a sprint car. You jumped right in.
Yeah, it's like us starting a podcast on a whim. Like, let's go. Let's just do it.
That's fine. A little different, but
yeah, a little bit.
Well, I mean, like they both seem to go well, so hey, it's more similar than you think. But no, so just over the years, it's only gotten better. Around 2018, Ben Snellbecker with Snellbecker Electric came on as a park car owner, and his involvement really put us to the next level. I mean, up until that point, it was we had the car that we were racing, had a few extra shocks, had like legit an extra set of wheels. It was enough just to get to the night, nothing extra. And with him, we're to a point now where we have two cars. Our motor program's better than it's ever been. Got a couple motors that we can cycle through the year, stuff like that. And it's just, it took us from being like competitive what we have to being able to take it to the next, like I said, to the next level. Just being able to go out and if something happens, we know that we'll be able to be there the next night.
So mainly Trailway early on. Did you venture out anywhere else? Or let's put it this way: how many years were you just Trailway, or did you go to some other places early on?
So my first year was, like I said, 2014. So I was only 14 at the time. So I could only race at Trailways. We tried to go to Lincoln once that year, and in no uncertain terms, we were told that we didn't have to leave, but I wasn't allowed to race. So
well, that was nice of them.
But so my second year, I actually got a waiver with Lincoln to be able to race there under 16, because I had raced at Trailways the year before that. Had to go through their, a little bit of a process, and so my second year was Trailways in Lincoln pretty much every week, and then my third year I was 16, so I was able to start going to the Grove, Lincoln Trailways, just kind of race what we could when we could. And for those first couple of years, it was kind of hit or miss. Some weeks money would be tight and just couldn't make it, but there was other times that we'd go race 2-3 times a weekend for an entire month. But yeah, so after my third year is when we started like really getting out to wherever we could go. My second year, like I said, was Lincoln and Trailways, and first year was just Lincoln.
So not to compare the two tracks, but after you run Trailway the first year or two, first time you get to go to Lincoln, I mean, did it feel like Daytona versus Martinsville a little bit? I mean, they're both smallish tracks, but when you've only raced Trailway, did Lincoln feel like, holy shit, these straightaways are forever?
Not really.
Okay.
Honestly, like, and this is one reason that I'm really sad that Trailways is gone, aside from just losing a track, is that Trailways was a great track to start at because it was so tight. I mean, Lincoln and Trailways, like, they're not super far off size-wise, but Trailways was just so much tighter that you had to, you were racing up on people, you were racing, right there. Whereas Lincoln, you got more room. So going from Trailways to Lincoln was actually a really easy transition because it was, you're going faster, but you got so much more room. You can do stuff and work around people and it not be super close. And that's one thing I really attribute to me being able to race close with people and hard, is that I raced the trails my first year and just learned how to, handle myself and keep my composure when I'm right up on top of somebody. That transfers into every track that you go to now.
And so on average, how many races a year did you kind of do first 3, 4, 5 years? What was your total race count, do you think?
I mean, it was probably right around like 25, 30 those first couple of years, mainly limited by where I could race, but and then after those first 2 years, it opened up a lot. I mean, we'll get up into 30, 40 races, just depending on who has us, when they have us, that kind of stuff.
What were some of the biggest lessons you learned? You're a young guy. You said 14 years old, so you not only like had to grow up, but you had to learn how to race a race car, like not just the physical, like make the car turn and go fast, but racecraft, patience, maturity, and just your personality. Like, what were some of the things you kind of look back and go, yeah, I would, or maybe it was even in that same season you were like, I ain't do that again. Is there something that stands out to you?
I mean, like for me, that first year especially, I stepped on a lot, but like all of it together, yeah, I was 14, but like I knew this is what I wanted to do, and so for me, like the normal stuff that most people are going through at 14, I wasn't involved myself in. I missed a whole bunch of stuff to go do racing and whatnot, so I wasn't hanging around doing like a lot of the typical high school kid stuff. I was just the track. So I mean, I kind of I had the people I looked up to, and so I pretty much just tried to put myself in that same level as far as like out of the car, my attitude, how I talk to people, how I present myself, that kind of stuff, and then in the car, just constantly striving to be better. And I mean, obviously, I was 14. You think you know everything. You think
Right.
you think that you can do no wrong. And looking back, there's definitely times that I did some stuff and I was like, probably shouldn't have done that, or I probably should have handled that differently. But it's all part of learning. And
Yeah, 100% it is. We call that experience, and that's what I call it every time I screw up, experience. Um, that's a good way to put it, that way. So it probably, I would like if I was 14 years old and never raced a race car, and I jump into a 358 and I win in my first season, that could probably do me worse than it should. Like, that's probably worse for me, right? Because I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I got this figured out. Look, I won a race in my first season. You go into like the next season and you're tearing shit up or making moves you shouldn't because you have all the like confidence is important. But like, did that ever like? I mean, winning is great, right? I'm not saying it was a bad thing, but like, did that ever like kind of happen where it was almost like this overconfidence after winning in your first year as 14 years old? Do you remember any of that?
I wouldn't say it was so much like an overconfidence. Like, I'm not going to say that first one was a complete fluke, but I knew that it wasn't, like, oh, I'm the best
I've
since
made it.
sliced bread. Yeah,
Okay.
like I knew that
gotcha.
wasn't the case.
You were grounded about it.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of that was the people around me, kind of being like, yeah, that's awesome, but there's still a long way to go. I mean,
Yeah,
I can
good.
look back to even that race and just see the mistakes I made. You know what I mean, and how I need to get better with that. But, and then the second year, you tore up a lot of stuff the second year just because I was, pushing the car harder and harder, and so I was already kind of, not on the whole, like, I know that I have a lot to improve on. And then the next year kind of being like, yep, you did that and that was awesome, but you need to find your limit and then go from there.
Right. So how much, kind of taking it from another angle, next year when you're struggling and you're tearing stuff up and it's not going how you envision it to go when you leave year one with the win. Do you go back and be like, I can drive a race car. I've shown that I can win in this race car. Like, did you use that to kind of keep you motivated in those bad stretches and things like that, or how did that influence you at all?
I mean, obviously, like I knew that I could do it. You know what I mean? And at the time, being 15, I know that I know that I have everything ahead of me. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things where it's kind of like, even if I completely suck right now, I have the next
the next
couple years
right
to figure it out before somebody goes, maybe you should set it down. But no, it was one of those, like that first one was surreal, and there's nothing I could say to,
to
there's
downplay
nothing,
that, right?
yeah, like that'll always be probably the most special and like the coolest. But it was, there's always more to do, and it comes and goes. It's a roller coaster always.
I'm really fascinated how you just jumped right into a sprint car and then you had almost immediate success in a way, being able to win, and all that. Why? Like, do you know why? Like, do you know what was something that, like, either from your upbringing or, I mean, I know you said you were always around sprint cars, but like, what's the biggest factor in being able to do that?
I mean, really, just like all the people I had around me. That first year, you had a lot of help. Like I said, we helped the Dietrichs for a number of years, and I talked to them a lot, and they'd see me from time to time, that kind of stuff. Like Billy actually was at the track with us a couple times, just helping out. And I mean, just the first, couple weeks being there, that helped a ton. There was an obvious progression each and every week, and like I got put in a good spot that last race, and I just like I started on the pole, led the whole race. I didn't have to, race to get there. So it was more just like I had to kind of, do my own thing. But I knew if I just didn't make a big mistake, like I'd be okay, So that first win, a lot of it I think was, the cards I was dealt that night, and just not putting a ton of pressure on myself about it. Just with, I know it's my first year, and like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And so the cards fell right, and I just was able to pull it off. But yeah, I don't think that was a ton of like, oh, I got this figured out. It was just a little bit of luck, a little bit of doing. So
Yeah, but someone starts on the pole every week. So, like, it's their race to lose, right? I mean,
Yep.
at the end of the day, you can say fluke, you can call it what you want, but you had to run all the laps and still cross the finish line first. And Trailway isn't a place where you can just run away and hide for the most part. There's guys on you all the time. You can get to lap traffic quick. If there's 15 cars in that division, you're in lap traffic in a few laps. You got to go. So, fluke, not a fluke, whatever. Look back. I mean, someone starts on the pole every week. So, everywhere in every race you'll ever see. So, there is something to be said where if you're a 14-year-old and you're starting on the pole, you can go one of two ways, right? Like I've seen it plenty over the years where a young, inexperienced guy gets a shot start up front. More often than not, they don't win that race, right? Because you're not ready. You're learning, you're doing whatever, and they may do good for a while and either wad it up or once they get past or things like that. So I would imagine being a trailway those first couple of years, like you talked about, learn how to race around cars, but also probably pass cars. So when you go to a place that's a little bit wider like Lincoln, you can start wherever you need to start and say, okay, if my car's better, I'm going to figure out how to do this. And with the aero stuff, right, with the dirty air, I'd imagine that was probably huge in that learning curve you talked about. Like Trailway, you don't have a ton of wing speed, but it matters, right? The aero is still there. Those cars, you guys kind of hauled the mail pretty good at that place for what it was. Like, did you find that to be a challenge even like at Lincoln? Was it more of a challenge with the aero stuff, or did it sort of like, oh yeah, I kind of know what this is going to do?
I mean, the thing about trailways is you were always in dirty air. You know what I mean? Like it was really hard to be in any type of clean air, so it never really changed. I know like my second or third year at Lincoln, I think I was running second or third or something. We were, kind of getting out away from people. We got to lap traffic, and I got in behind the lap car and just jumped the cushion, got in the wall a little bit, end of the night. But I came back and I was talking to my brother. I'm like, I don't know what happened. Like, I got in there and it just got tight on me. He goes, well, that's dirty air, And that was my first ever time really, realizing it. And those were the things that were different, is you get spread out more. And so stuff changes, you'll be running the whole race, half straight away behind somebody, catch up to them, and the car, completely changes.
So
Those types of things.
So you go a couple years and you're kind of splitting it up between Lincoln and Trailway, and then I would assume you get to turn 18, graduate high school. Then how did that change anything? You start working, you go to school. What was kind of going on at that time?
So I just went to work straight out of high school, so it didn't really change much for me because, like, in school, I went to school and I was doing the race car stuff. So going into work, it didn't change much except for I was able to spend a little bit of money on the car,
Right.
Instead of just being my dad at the time. But so for me, it wasn't a huge change because, like I said, I wasn't out doing the whole, hanging out with all my friends all the time, that kind of stuff. I was just focused on the racing stuff. So in that regard, it didn't throw too much of a hitch in anything. It just kind of moved right into, working and racing,
Right.
and that's doing the same thing I'm doing now, pretty much.
With so Lincoln, how many wins at Lincoln do you have?
As of right now, we got 4 at Lincoln,
Okay.
and the 1 at Trailways. So currently operating on a 1 every other year basis, and I'd really like to change that this year, but because we got 1 last year, so I'd like to pick up a few this year, hopefully, and break that streak. But
And that race you won this year, that thing was a rocket ship.
yeah, that night was a really special night overall. But yeah, I mean, that whole night was phenomenal. I have my brother Daryl to thank for that. He, my oldest brother Jake was crew chief for years, and started working with my other brother Daryl. He's been helping as a kind of trying to learn how to, set up cars and stuff, read a track, and he started kind of taking over that towards the end of the year as far as consulting, but kind of being like, this is what we're going to do. And I mean, that entire night, that car was just, from the drop of the heat race to the end of the feature, it was fast.
Yeah.
But
So you run a little bit of Williams Grove as well. When did you start running the Grove?
so started running Williams Grove in 2016. That was the first year I was allowed to run there. That place has been a thorn in my side the entire time. We usually just struggle there a little bit as far as, the setup, or just, me not getting there as much as I get to other places and stuff like that. And then 2 years ago, I think I started like 14th or something, and I was up to 3rd. And it was, I was in the car, I was excited. We had a caution. I had to kind of calm myself down a little bit, just because it was, the best we've done there, and it was going to be a really good result. And ended up running out of fuel, the one time we've ever done that. So that kind of stunk. But this year we kind of dialed back on how much we run in the Grove, as far as, like, with stuff being so hard to get and stuff like that. Just motor wise, it's hard on motors over there, so it was easier to just kind of stick to Lincoln. Venture out a little bit here and there, but just kind of take it cautious. But we actually ended up having 2 of our best runs over there this year. Had a heat race that went really good, and then a couple weeks later started 14th in the feature and got up to 4th again, and didn't run out of fuel this time. So we were bring that home and, kind of, realize that we can do pretty good over there. So then going into this year, not entirely sure what we're going to do as far as the Grove. It'll probably just be as they come up, but I'd really like to get over there some more and, really fine tune what we got going over there now.
What does so do you plan on running Lincoln full time?
Yeah, so our schedule this year pretty much is gonna like for sure is going to be every Lincoln race. That'll be, our number one thing. If it sacrifices anything else, we're going to be at Lincoln. And then, like I said, the Grove I'll have them all on the schedule, and then as we come up to them, talk about it, decide what we're going to do with them, and then I want to make a point of getting to the Big Diamond show we have, the 2 BAP shows, and the 3 Path Valley shows.
Cool.
Just, it anytime that somebody gives us a chance to get out, from the tracks that we race out every week, I'd like to try and get out there and support them that way. Not only is it great to get to new tracks, but also it's kind of to show that, like, hey, thank you for having us, and it'll hopefully help us grow and the whole division get out a little bit more and do kind of stuff like that. I don't know the last time that Big Diamond's had a 358 race, but it's not been a while since I was racing. So that's 10 years.
You brought. Sorry, buddy. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. That was
you brought up Path Valley. This is some other guys have talked about Path Valley a little bit, and like for me, I've been to Path Valley and I've been to Trailway. A lot of similarities, but how are they different? So for anybody listening, if you Trailway, kind of a bull ring for a sprint car, Path Valley's same thing, bull ring. Been to both. I mean, I've watched races there. They race a little differently, but very similar as far as like the size of the track, banking. They're pretty high bank, small ovals. What are your comparisons and also differences in those 2 tracks, if you have the experience there?
So between the 2, like similarities and stuff is, like you said, they're both small, so you're always racing close. You're never getting away from anybody too much, and if you do, you're just on top of the next couple cars, but I'd say overall they're actually, personally, they're pretty different, just in the fact that Trailways, never got like huge berms and stuff like that, and it was come feature time it slowed down a good bit, whereas Path Valley stays kind of fly by the seat of your pants the entire time, with it being so banked on Path Valley, and the cushion usually gets so big, it becomes a little bit of a, like, you got to let it all hang out, but you also have to, kind of dance with it to just try and get through people, and then also just keep yourself safe. Because if you don't, that cushion will bite you, and it's not hard to do. Whereas Trailways usually, like, you might get tight, but you're never really too in risk of, biking it hard or anything like that, like you are with Path. But
It's an interesting to kind of. I mean, it's been a while since I've been in Trailway, even when it was still running, and it's been a while since I've been at Path, and I've from a fan's perspective, they race similar, but I'd imagine in the seat it's quite a bit different. The banking thing makes sense, and I'm like in my brain now thinking they're banked the same, but you're right. Path is definitely more banked to the wall, and I think a lot of times the sprint cars, the full size cars, end up closer to the wall than you do at Trailway, from my experience. Was that sound right?
yeah, I mean, especially like, I know Trailways back in the day, like early 2000s, when the Dietrichs were still running 350s over there, like all 3 of them, they had a lot more cars, and it would get pretty wide, and it'd get to be probably what Path Valley is kind of like now. But since I was racing there, it always got like, halfway up the track, 3/4 way up the track. So you always had like a pretty good buffer, and you were never really too close to, hitting the wall, stuff like that. Whereas Path Valley, it gets up there, and you're using the whole track sometimes. But I think that's the biggest thing for me up there is you're utilizing the whole track, the entire race. Whereas Trailways was more of like this is the line that's working tonight. This is what we got to do. So,
Saw you ran Bridgeport in October. Was that your first trip there?
yeah, so that was our first trip out there. We ran with the 360s. That track, compared to what we usually race on right around here, is way different. It's a really big momentum track, and so like usually around here at least you can, like, 358s can run with 360s and whatnot, and usually be pretty competitive at BAPS, Lincoln, even at the Grove. Whereas out there, like it was fast, but everybody was fast. There wasn't. You kind of race with the 360s and stuff, but as soon as somebody got a little bit on you, it just kind of drove away from me a little bit. But the way you drive that track is so different than anything I've experienced. Just because you kind of enter and wash out all the time, but it's just to keep your momentum up. You can't scrub speed trying to keep it right where you want it to be, but it's definitely a different animal out there.
It was interesting watching the different divisions race it and how they raced it. Guys could the the wing cars, excuse me, the 358, 360s, and the 410s. It seemed like you could race about, I don't know, 8 different ways in the corners and could make a lot of them work. Depending on what you needed, whether you stayed up high, you did sort of a cut down, you sort of did a slider. You sort of just roll the bottom, take the short way around because it is pretty wide. So if you get a guy around the top and you're around the bottom and you can get it to go, it's definitely a shorter way around. But that momentum, like you said, a lot of times what I noticed was that momentum just carried people from the top down, because it's pretty big from that hill down off. You better hopefully be good on entry and carry some speed. But for the most part, it looked like to me everybody coming off the hill won. I mean, is that kind of what you saw?
I mean, especially in the first night out there, because it got pretty dry that first night. So, everybody was kind of, running up top and diving down off. The second night, they reworked the track right before the features, and that the second night was kind of everybody everywhere. And I mean, I was stuck in the back, but I couldn't really see much of what they were doing. But I know back there, everybody was just kind of doing everything lap to lap, and it was all pretty even. But you'd get a little bit on somebody, they get a little bit on you. And yeah, I mean, it was that second night I was around the bottom, but I think Norris was doing what you were saying about entering up and then coming down across, and him and I raced back and forth pretty much that entire race.
Did you get to throw any sliders on anyone? And was it fun?
I did the first night.
Because it looked like a lot of damn fun from my perspective.
The first night in that qualifier, Joe Cotta and I were at the back starting, and I think there was an early caution we got. There was an early caution because we kind of got separated at the initial start. But after that first caution, him and I were kind of going at it for a couple laps and, throwing sliders back and forth and trying this and that. And he eventually got away from me. But that little bit was pretty exciting. You don't 358s around here. You get some slide jobs in every now and then, but, not like that. That was, the whole way across the track, just real big, let it hang out. But
it was awesome. Watching some of those wingless guys do that, I was like, oh, I mean, he was 3-4 car lengths back and would just send it. And I'm like, well, the banking you just leaned on the banking and it slowed down and down off the hill they went. It was wild.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to see. And like you said, just so much different than what we're used to seeing here. Standing in the infield, and it was just like every lap, I'm like, who's going to do it this lap? Like, I was excited to see who's going to throw the next slider. Yeah, that was a good time for sure. Would you go back and run that again?
I probably wouldn't go back out with 358 just because, like I was saying, was I could kind of race them a little bit, but as soon as they got out, they were running away from me. So like if I had a 360 or something that I could be competitive with them with, I'd for sure go back out. It was a blast to race out there. But like I said, just with what we got right now, I would see us going back out, but I'd love to get back out there, and run with 360s at some point.
All right. I'm going to let Jimmy and Chris finish up, and they're going to finish up with their questions, but I have my question of the week. Every driver gets it. It's your turn. Are you ready?
All right.
You don't know this, do you?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I never made it this far, apparently. Darn it.
Eventually, guys are going to be like, all right, when's it coming? Because there's, I've gotten mixed on like if people want to say, whatever. So you have to name 2 drivers. One, you absolutely love racing around no matter what. It's always had a good time for whatever reason. I don't care. 2, who you hate racing around. Now, when I say this, I always have to tell the drivers, it doesn't have to be personal. You just don't like the guy. I'm going to almost call it like the Ryan Newman effect. Hard to get around. They race you hard every time, just a pain in your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. Or you can be like, hey, I don't like this guy. I'm here for it. But you don't have to be like, hey, I don't like that guy. Someone you love racing around, someone it's hard to race around.
Oh, that's a hard one. So somebody I love to race around. I'd probably have to say, I don't know. I always liked racing around Jeff Rohrball. He was, because even for my first times at Lincoln, he ran me real hard, but it was clean, and that carried through the entire time. He usually won those battles, but it was always fun to run with him and to know what he's done and be able to keep up with him or dice it up with him and stuff like that, and then to be able to go back and joke about it afterwards. You know what I mean? So that would have to be my favorite. Trying to figure out how I want to answer the second one.
Your choice.
It's a trap.
I feel like it is. I feel like he's setting up fights on the front stretch is what he's trying to do.
Maybe.
Yeah, he's in. He's in with the trap.
Listen, it might sell more tickets. That's what we need. We need more fans in the stands, apparently.
Yeah.
See what you did there.
Yeah.
What?
Touche.
What do you mean?
Facebook drama. Start calling them the Chaz. It's fine. I've
been called worse. I don't know how. That's pretty rough, but thanks, Wyatt. Man, I thought we were cool.
Hey, he has some good videos. I do enjoy some of his videos. All right?
You're just stalling here at this point.
Huh?
You're stalling at this point.
Yep.
Yeah, I really am.
Do you hate racing? Can you say you hate racing around the Chaz? You can just go
huh?
No, we can't go with that. I'm not letting him off the hook.
No, I'll let him hook here, buddy.
I mean, I've had I'll go with what everybody wants. I've had my drivers that I've had the run-ins with.
In your division, I don't know if I know who that is.
No, it's so I've had my run-ins with a couple of drivers over the years.
Sure.
But there's been a few that have been ongoing. Now I'm stalling myself.
I'm trying to figure out which one he wants to say.
But this
yeah, right.
No.
But the one you want to say,
who do I hate?
Excuse me, I'm sick as hell. The one that you want to say, are they aware of this?
I mean, probably.
It should be.
It's not going to be anything.
Make sure they're aware now.
No, they are.
Next week's guest.
It's turned into a little bit of in the pits thing. There's never been anything too bad go down. But I've had some runs with Chris Frank, and that's probably the guy that I've had the most issue with. But on the same note, we're both there racing, so I don't how much of it I doubt it's personal, but we've had our couple of run-ins, but I'm sure that there'll come a day when it's the other way around, with me with someone else. So
it does, and I think the longer you're in the same division and then with the same guys year after year after year, this shit's it's bound to happen, right?
Oh yeah.
And there's
I'm sure there's somebody out there that say the same thing about me.
100%.
So,
and as you go through this, and you can have a season where just like that one guy every week you're around, no matter what. You're in the heat together, you end up in the hot lap group together, you end up starting to feature 3 spots apart. Yeah. You see that kind of stuff happen all the time, and it goes in waves, right? Like over the years you talked about, but you've been in that division a long time. Yeah. There's guys that are going to be in that division a long time, so it's going to happen. Like it's bound to happen. And listen, we've had this answer. I've asked this question to everybody we've had on. We've had one repeat answer for that question. Okay.
Well, now you got me intrigued. Who was it?
Freddie Raymer.
Okay.
Hard to race around, right? And listen, you don't have to. A lot of times, what happens in this, and you see this a lot, like you said, a personal versus racing. A lot of times, I think as drivers, you can have the run in, you can have the thing, and you look at that person and be like, hey, I don't like him. Well, you just wrecked race cars together. You don't know anything about the guy, maybe, right? Like you might, but I'm just saying, like, Freddie, for all intents and purposes, and pretty quiet kid, whatever. But when he's in a race car, he ain't, right? So
and
it's one of the things where it
they were
turns
just
into
tired
this,
of him. They were tired of him passing them,
Yeah.
So it
Sick of
wasn't
getting beat.
like he was just like, this son of a bitch again. Like,
No,
100%.
that's what I think. And that even with my answer, Chris and I for a long time, we were cool with each other, and I think that still, at the track and stuff, we'll, let that be, kind of what it is. But you get on the track and you're close to each other, and stuff happens. It sucks when it's, it seems like it's the same people, that you're getting in tough with, but that comes and goes. You know what I mean? It'll be with that guy for a little bit. And like you said, just because you're racing close together, you're doing that kind of stuff, so that it's bound to happen. And eventually, happens enough times, and you're in the heat of the moment, you're gonna get pretty upset about it, and have some words. But at the end of the day, it's racing. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I wouldn't want there to, long term be an
Yeah,
issue.
I just got done PMing him just to let you know that he was on the podcast. So
That's fine.
he said, "Oh, I can't say that on
Yeah,
Facebook."
no.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We were actually PMing each other. So Chris has a weekly question that he has as well.
so you talked about obviously your most special win being your first one, but looking ahead, if you could pick a race you wanted to win, what would it be? Any sprint car race, anywhere?
But it doesn't have to be a 358 race. It's a sprint car race.
It could be a
Ooh,
NASCAR
that's-
race too if you really want to get crazy.
I'll leave that to Larson and Bell and those guys. But race I'd want to win. Honestly, it'd probably be. I don't necessarily know which one, but one of the big races locally, in a 410, obviously, that's our end goal. But I think that would be just because of being growing up around here and watching those races all my life. Like sure to big dream, winning like the Knoxville National or something. Yeah, that'd be awesome. But sitting in the stands as a kid watching, like the National Open and the big races up at Port and even some of the bigger races that Lincoln has. It'd be really cool to win one of those just for the the fact that I've always watched them. I've always been at those races, and to someday be able to win one of them would be really, really special and important.
So you
Awesome.
kind of disappointed Chris there because he's the biggest Williams Grove fan there is, and he always takes pride in the fact if someone if they pick Williams Grove race. So
Funny 'cause
you
it
kind of
pisses you guys off.
Jimmy, what do you got to finish up, buddy?
So good.
White race car, by the way.
You're actually gonna take pictures of it this year.
Hey.
I took some last year, but I'm terrible. They weren't
yeah.
publishable. They were garbage.
I
That's
mean,
my talent level.
This one's pretty
probably the best one was the one that was messed up.
100. Oh,
when the left front was half tore out of it.
the left front. Yeah, he ran over. Listen, he ran over. Probably Chris Frank. Okay. Runs
No,
this
I
guy
got
over.
it. I got it. Look, I'll admit, I got in behind Temple a little bit too hot on corner entry, and for the left front under, didn't quite know it right away until
He came off at 2, and I'm telling you, the left front tire was not on the ground, broken, up in the air. He was driving on 3 tires around the corner, and I got a picture of it, and I'm like, hey, like,
That's
I don't,
not
what was
right.
it? I don't know if it wasn't that week. It might have been the week after because he spun out in 3. Like, he came off 2, went down the backstretch.
Well,
I
it
wanna
was
say-
like under the bridge. It started to really get away from me, and then it just down across the track.
Just down across, looped it, and then it was broken for sure. And I'm like, I showed him a week or 2 later. I don't even know when that was. I think it might have been the infield at Lincoln or something. I don't remember. And I'm like, by the way, did you know this? He's like, holy shit, yeah, that was broken, wasn't it? Oh yeah, it was like up inside under the wing. Like it was. I've never seen anything like that before. Like at full speed, I'm like, oh shit, this is dangerous. That was wild.
It was one of those things where like it happened, but because of where I was in the corner, like the car kind of did a little shake to it, and then it kind of felt,
Everything's
okay.
fine.
Yeah, because you're not at the Grove, you're not, laying on the left front ever really. So it got to the corner, like I was steering, obviously, but I got to the backstretch, and as soon as it tried to kind of transfer that weight over, it just went left.
All right, man. So, Jimmy, I'll let Jimmy finish up, but revealed the paint scheme. Going with white this year. Beautiful scheme. Who does that for you? Who designed the scheme, and who's going to wrap it?
That's actually one of our sponsors, To Be Wrapped.
Okay.
They're out of Hanover. They've done our car the last. I think this is his 4th year doing our car, and he's done a killer job every time.
Very nice.
So I kind of give him, what I'm looking for color wise, and he runs from there. And like this year's car is just phenomenal. But
Top notch.
I'm looking forward to the pictures.
All right. I got you. It's white. I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay, I got 3 more questions for you before we let you go. They're
All
easy ones, though. The first one, I kind of been asking almost every 358 driver this. Do you have aspirations? I mean, obviously, you kind of sound like you have aspirations to get into a 410. Are there any plans? Do you have like a pathway to that?
I mean, as of right now, my aspirations obviously are to get into a 410 and see where that goes. But as of right now, we're kind of just looking at the 358 stuff as far as it's what is in our price range.
Gotcha.
If the opportunity was to present itself one way or another, be it in our stuff, or if somebody else was able to, if I got that opportunity, which would be just phenomenal. Like I'd take it in a heartbeat. But so yeah, I mean, end goal is to be racing 410s and wherever that might go. But for right now, just doing what we're able.
Good deal. Next question: who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl?
Don't do it.
I see
This is an
that
actual
jersey.
trap.
I see the jersey.
Don't
So I know
engage with him. Don't engage with him.
I know what answer he wants though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if
go
you
the
don't
other
give me
way.
the answer, I'm not going to let you thank your sponsors.
Huh? Well, that's just rude. I'll share the podcast on Facebook and then add my sponsors to it if you don't let me.
I figured I got.
He answered it perfect.
So I'm guessing you're going for the Chiefs, and that's okay.
Wait, is that this weekend?
Not really. I'm kind of indifferent.
Okay. Yeah, that is this weekend.
I'm there for Rihanna. I'll say that. That's
Hey.
I'll take that answer.
Look, I'm a Steelers fan, so both of them are kind of a kick in the pants. But
and who are your sponsors? Who helps you get to the track every week?
So for sponsorship, we've actually this year has been great for that so far. So we have Snellbecker Electric. That's actually the park car owner, but he came on as a sponsor in 2018, and that relationship grew, and we were able to. He eventually came on as a part owner, and like I said earlier, that really progressed us to. I just saw the last comment to come in. He's gonna like my my driver comments. But so Snellbecker came on in 2018, and they've been with us ever since. And came on as a park car owner eventually, and it's really gotten us to where we are now, as far as what we have and what we're able to do. But outside of that, we got Griffith Plumbing Services came back on board this year. The little tool truck came back on. To Be Wrapped, like I said, that's my vinyl guy. He's been with us for a couple of years now. Johnny and Rude's, Jen's Rhythm and Brews, they're all back this year. Moons 2 is actually somebody that's been on the car for probably since my second or third year. So that's long-term support. East Berlin Beverage Distributor, and actually Desiree Grogan, she is coming on this year. She's just actually got on here a couple of days ago. So she is, give me a second here. Still learning the names of all of them, actually.
A pro tip: if you have a guy off to the side with a card, it helps.
Okay, so what I was gonna do? I was gonna do a little list, because I'm terrible with it. I'm the guy that looks at the the car as I'm doing an interview.
I tried that too.
A text from him to
that didn't work for that guy.
Hey, are you free right now? So, but Raymore and Flanagan, Desiree Grogan, if you go in there and ask for her, she'll help you find some furniture and stuff. But she came on this year. Um, and we also have M&R Performance. They came on this year.
Very nice.
Boom. Timing.
Yeah, that was
Thanks, Ben.
but also Titan Wings and our engine builder Weasel Power. That's all those guys. If it wasn't for everybody that helps with us, it wouldn't we wouldn't get to the track every week. So it's just it's crazy to have the kind of support that we do at this point. And it keeps getting better every year, and we wouldn't be there without them. So
Yeah, I mean that's what makes it go round. I mean, if you didn't have it, it wouldn't happen. So got to have those. We're going to invite you back, just like we invited everybody else. I did make actually a deal with you over the weekend and said you're not allowed to come on the podcast until you get a win. But here you are before the win. So you get a win this year. Come back on Monday, unless that's your shop day or whatever the case may be. I don't care. We'll phone it in from the shop, but we'll get you in here after a win. We'll have a beer together, enjoy and celebrate.
Yeah. So I thank you guys for having me. It's always nice to get around and chat about racing and try and learn some stuff about everybody. So
Hell yeah,
thank
dude.
you guys.
We appreciate
Thank
you,
you for
man.
joining
Take
us.
care, Wyatt.
Yep, you as
Thank
well.
you,
Have a good night, guys.
See you, man.
Awesome, Wyatt Hinkle. It was a good interview. Good to find out some more about him. I didn't know he just jumped right into a 358. That's pretty
Same.
wild to me. That's
I mean,
you
if he
don't
can
hear
do it, I
about
can
that.
do it, right?
And
No.
yeah.
Let's go.
Especially everybody we've been
14,
talking
40.
Oh yeah.
to.
shit.
Everybody
That
has
is
such
bad.
a unique, come up into where they're at right now. Everybody that we talk to, but I don't think I've heard yet. We definitely haven't heard yet. Just a 14-year-old kid jump into a 358 and going. That's pretty wild. So
Here's the
tips and-
keys,
yeah.
per se.
And that definitely shows some of the raw talent he has then, for sure. You know what I mean? I was trying to tee that up for him when I was asking him, hey, why do you think he had so much success? Raw
Skills,
talent,
bro.
God-given
skills.
talent.
So we haven't heard from Travis Chalk Guy. I don't think we're gonna be able to have him on tonight. We'll try to reschedule. But what we could do is talk a little bit about our weekend at Racing Extravaganza and talk a little bit here about Volusia too. And if you guys are watching right now, put your questions in the chat on what you guys want to talk about too. We'll chop it up here for a little bit, see if he joins us. But yeah, Racing Extravaganza, guys, that was my first time ever there. I know you guys have gone there a lot over the years. What'd you guys think?
Yeah, I've been going since I was a kid, and I don't know if I've missed one. Excuse me, other than maybe when I didn't live in Pennsylvania. There was a couple years I think I lived in Texas. Maybe I missed it 1 year since I was like 7 years old. I don't remember. But I think the show's going in like a weird progression. It used to be two halls. I mean, there was shit everywhere, and it kind of like downsized a little bit. And the group that has it now is really doing a nice job and trying to build it back up and have some really unique things that aren't necessarily racing centric. Sean Clifford with the NIL, with their group that was there, I think Elite
Limitless.
Limitless, yeah,
Limitless.
that was interesting.
I hear my kid. I might have to go, but that was cool. The cornhole tournament just getting bigger and bigger. Like some
Yeah, that was
legit
huge.
pros there. The one thing that I wish I might have to try to get contacts of who runs the thing, but there was a car there that was going to get wrapped live, like they were going to do it while the show was happening.
Oh.
A sprint car. It was an all black car. It was Hayden Miller's car, and it was there, and they had it scheduled to be wrapped in like just there, and they were the guy was going to come in and do it, and I think something happened with the product and didn't get in time or whatever, so it didn't happen. But I think that would be a cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like a cool deal. Do multiple, have it set up where people bring their cars in unwrapped and they watch these guys letter the cars and see the final product. I mean, I think it's something for people to see versus, again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a stand of people standing behind it going, hey, look, there's a stand with people. There's something to grab someone's attention about the world of racing that we do. And listen, this isn't my idea. I love their idea. I'd love to see them expand that.
Mhm.
I think they're really onto something there. So for me, it was great to see some people I haven't seen in a few months, drivers, some just contacts with teams and track people, the New Sealands Grove crew, with the Stutz family and kind of what they're doing. I had a great time, and I walked around and looked at all the cars, but most years it's about the cars for me. This year it was like the event, and I think that's just as important as the cars. And I think they're doing a great job with it.
Yeah. Sean Donnelly in here real quick because that's something we're going to get into. Do any of you guys know anything about the Selinsgrove schedule? That was something when we were there we asked, and they don't have a schedule out yet, but we were told pretty soon they're going to have some news, and hopefully we might be able to have some of that news on here. Possibly, we'll see. But
Yeah, I woke up to Ethan Stutz, and I said, "Hey," I kind of whispered in his ear, and I said, "I bet nobody here's asked you about your schedule yet, huh?" And I'm glad he had a good laugh about it. So, I know it's on their mind. I know it's a number one priority, to get that out to the fans and the drivers because, there's been a lot of rumors swirling about kind of what their schedule looks like. And I know that there's some 358 teams, especially, kind of waiting to see what they have in store to kind of put their season out there. So, super excited to hear that. And I think that's going to be coming soon.
Yeah, I'm excited for what they're going to bring. Chris, what caught your eye there this weekend?
I think they kind of picked up what Jeremy said, just to talking, interacting with people that it's kind of not. It's like you see drivers at the racetrack, they're in their office, they're working, they're kind of busy there. You kind of had a more relaxed type atmosphere where you could kind of pick their brain, and everyone was just kind of hanging out and just looking at different things and getting re-meeting after most these people we haven't seen since October at the National Open. So I think that's the cool part for me.
Yeah, it was a good deal. For me, it was my first time ever there, so it was a lot of sensory overload for me. I didn't. I knew I was going to see race cars and stuff, but I didn't know exactly what it entailed, and it was pretty cool. It definitely was a great experience, and looking forward to go back probably every year from now on. It was a cool deal. Just the tracks and there's some vendors there and everything. Like you said, it wasn't just like just like a mall show of a bunch of cars. It's a lot of different things and everything. This Selinsgrove was definitely one of the more intriguing things for me. They had a huge stand there. They had no schedule. But we know some of their races. We know they're getting an all-star race back. We know that they're going to have, they kind of release some of that stuff in like press releases and stuff, but a nice concrete schedule would be is definitely going to be something that we're all going to be looking forward to, because I think, like you said, there's a lot of people waiting to kind of decide on their schedules and kind of see what they're going to do from week to week, depending on them, which is a good sign for Selinsgrove that people are holding out, to see what they do, because people want to go and race there and fans want to go there, including myself. So, yeah.
For sure. I agree completely. A couple comments here. Tyler Shell, you are our World of Outlaw iRacing champion.
Yeah. Got to see him there.
Got to see
hanging out
Tyler
for a little bit.
He should be going to Florida, right? He should be. Is he heading down? Is he gone yet?
He might be there now. I forget. He said he's flying out Wednesday. I think he said.
Yeah, I think he's flying out Wednesday. I just talked to him a few minutes ago. He was still on Discord, so I think he's still home. But Ashley Capetta, thanks for tuning in, Ashley. Hey, Ashley, reach out. We'll have you on someday. We'll bring you on here. We can chat. Got to know Ashley a lot last year. At Lincoln, and talked to her a lot through her season, and she had some ups and downs for sure. And I feel like there's 358 teams this past year. There was a lot of 358 teams that had struggles that we've seen have success in years previous. So, I think Ashley kind of fell in that boat and had a few good runs, but there was a lot of those weeks where it's like, okay, let's get this thing going. And I think at the very end of the season there, she had a really good run. So, awesome. Would love to have you on, Ashley.
Awesome.
Also, cool. Wyatt Hinkle, shouting out Apex Media, coming on board with him. We did talk about that over the weekend. And, I know Cole and Nate and those guys, they do a hell of a job with Apex and their video content. Kind of definitely friends with those guys. Got to know them a lot this past year. And every weekend I saw either Cole or Nate at the track. So if you haven't looked up Apex Media on TikTok, they have a hell of a presence on TikTok and all the socials really, but their biggest area is TikTok for sure. They do a great job there. So, the Racing Xtravaganza, like I said, I think even for myself that you talked about sensory overload, it felt like things were happening so fast around us. It was like, okay, we were talking here and then we went over there and we stopped and we talked and we stopped and we talked and it was like, which is great. I enjoyed it a lot. I lost my voice actually. It was a crazy weekend for sure. Been a little bit under the weather and then I lost my voice and, it's kind of a weird thing. I was helping out with Nat's car a little bit there and supporting Bob Ruth Ford and Nat, because he works with them, and Nat was at his boys wrestling tournament. He has twin sons and helped out there a little bit, kind of just hung around, and then we made some contacts with Turn Two Terribles, handed out a
Yep.
few cards. So a lot of our good friends, Cody Hartlaub and Kyle Keene and Dakota Kuhn, all of our close buddies were there and got to kind of shoot the shit with them a little bit,
And past guests.
and past guests, right? Future and past guests, and I think we might lined up a couple future guests
Right.
for sure. Some pretty big
Yep.
ones here. So keep an eye out. If you're watching this now for the first time, subscribe. Find a way to follow the content, because
Yep.
we're not slowing down.
Yeah.
This train is going to keep rolling.
Just
Yeah,
shout out with Ashley there. I saw this morning her event coming up. She still has a few tickets left, 30 as of this morning. So if you're looking to try to go to her event this weekend, I believe it is, check out her page and get the information for that.
Good deal.
Rocky, if there's anyone bigger than Jay-Z, it's Billy Rocky. Let me tell you, this guy here, where's the hat? Here, Vengeance Apparatus, if y'all don't know. This is a Kyle Keene sponsor, or excuse me, Brett Strickler sponsor, front wing of Brett Strickler's car, Vengeance Apparatus. They upfit fire trucks, fire equipment, vehicles for a lot of it's specialty use type stuff. It's not your traditional fire truck. So Vengeance Apparatus on Facebook, they just got a nice new facility. They do a hell of a nice job there. And actually, I think Billy might be their TikTok guy. So I think he is. And if he does, man, this guy is a superstar. Let me tell you. That's Billy Rocky, everybody.
Billy Rocky.
And I believe, just a typo, so Sean, I believe it was last week, said they're in Volusia right now, if I remember right, Donnelly.
Oh yeah.
They tune in every week, and I think they were going to Volusia. I think
They
they're
were
there
going
now,
this
or
week.
going down for the All Stars and the Outlaw event. So that's pretty cool.
Hey, what is that hat you're wearing there, Jimmy? You got a Keen Motorsports hat?
Got a Keen Motorsports hat. Don't want to let too much out, but we were hanging out at Kyle's shop yesterday, and I learned a ton, and we learned a ton about him and his family and his dad and all that. And
Jimmy got a hat.
deal. And I got a hat. So
Well, somebody private messaged me and said, "Hey, I need to get one of them Kyle Keene hats." And then we just see a Turn Two Terribles hat here. So apparently the hat business is a booming. So we're gonna have to get on that. I know Keene's gonna have some merch this season for sure at the track. As far as Turn Two Terrible merch, we have not really invested a ton for as far as like selling them. We're not. I don't know if we're the type to merchandise ourselves that way.
Right.
Like we're not in that for the money grab of merchandise. I don't know if that's just I don't know. We haven't really talked about that a ton, but we may have a few
If there's
here
enough
and there,
interest,
small batch.
Yeah, if there's enough interest, we'll do a run this year, and
Yeah.
and we'll do something. We appreciate everybody who does want one, and
Yeah.
is real willing to rock it, out in public. So,
I can tell you, Tyler, show this hat is sweet, and maybe you can sign it when I see you next. You can touch it
He
at
is
least.
so famous.
Yeah.
He's so famous. I can't wait.
That's World of Outlaw iRacing champion Tyler Shell, the people's champion.
He wants to touch my hat. That's cool.
That's a PA Posse member. We're going to call that I Posse.
Yes. Posse taking down the title.
Hey, Volusia, there's some sprint cars on the track again.
Cool.
I see Anthony Macri. There's the 26. Got him out there right now. I think this might be their second session. There's Hunter Schoenberg. I mean, I don't know where my stream is compared to everybody else's, but it's cool to see 410s on a racetrack, isn't it?
410s in America, back
in America,
on the track.
Yes, in our time zone.
So they're practicing the night down at Volusia, but then you got pretty much 5 straight nights down there at Volusia, or 6 straight nights. I think it's 5. 2 All-Star races, 3 World of Outlaw races, and and then the season's starting. You know what I mean? You got the All-Stars, they go to East Bay then, and then I think the Outlaws go back to Volusia in a couple of weeks, and it's the season
up to PA.
Then back up to PA, where we'll be hopefully like 70 degrees. It's sunny at the end of February, the way the weather's kind of been. Maybe
today would have been a good day for the icebreaker.
Yeah,
you never know. It's a kind of a like up the weather around here that day. You just like, okay, you can look at a week ahead, but by the time you get to the day, you just don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah. I'm
East
already
Bay.
scrolling. I'm already scrolling out on my AccuWeather app like 14, 15 days out just to try to get as close to the day as possible.
Right.
To
Is it going to be
that
20 or
way,
50?
yeah, the way too early forecast.
Yeah. I'll probably start. Well, I got some free time. I might start doing that soon too. A couple comments here. So Tyler Shell got East Bay's about to start with some late models. Tyler, we don't talk about those on this show. Okay. There's actually, I will give a shout out because we're not
That's
in
not entirely
competition.
true. That's not
We're
true.
not,
We are
we do.
open to late model gas if somebody wants to.
We are, but I will say this: we're not in competition with anyone, but there is a couple local late model guys who just started a podcast in the last week. I want to say,
Oh, really?
yeah, I just saw it on Facebook come across, and I wish I remember the names, but they had a lot of good interest. I saw they kind of made a post about it, so. Check out the local Pennsylvania pages if you're a late model guy. Two drivers actually are going to be doing it, so
That's
way
cool.
more educated people than us,
Yeah.
talking with guests or just with each other. I don't know. Um, but no, we would absolutely have some late model guys. I have a couple buddies in that world, so I might be able to pull some strings if we get through, the real car, people. So, wait,
Yeah,
oh no, I just insulted late models and I got a late model guy. Oh no,
told you. Jay-Z
I'm
not
not good at
goaded.
this. We don't know what we're doing. Okay, we never admitted it. There it is. Yeah, Wyatt Hinkle,
Raceaholic.
Raceaholics Anonymous. That's what it's called.
Cool. Check
So
it out.
check that out. Listen,
Yes, Tony, you can stay. By the way,
yeah,
no, this is
please,
Jay-Z.
Tony,
Yes.
please stay. We
Please stay.
appreciate all of you. Um, and I've talked to a lot of people here recently, and there's definitely an appetite for this type of content. And I don't think any of the three of us thought about it and went, "Wow, man, we just were like, hey, we know we're at the race every week.
Mhm.
Let's try to
Let's
get some
just sit
people
down and
on and
talk
let's
about it.
talk
Yeah.
about it."
Yeah.
So, we found pretty quickly there's an appetite for getting to learn about these drivers, and all the drivers have been like super open to it, and we love. Listen, every week I've learned something about all these guys, and I don't. We're not racers, so we're not going to get overly technical with all the hard parts and all that stuff, and that's what the pit area is for. I want to get to know these stories, man, and kind of like where they came from and the sponsorships, and you know, the more fans they gain, the more exposure these guys have, the more sponsors they get, the more people buy their merch. That keeps these people on the racetrack, and if we have people on the racetrack, I'm a
It's that
happy guy.
it makes the local racing scene very healthy. You know what
It
I mean?
does.
Which is we have a good racing. We're lucky to have a good
Very
local racing
fortunate.
scene here in PA. It's not like that everywhere in the country, to be honest.
Right.
And we're seeing that a little bit when you start hearing stories from all over the country. So we got to keep that going, man.
Hell yeah. What else? What else we got going on?
Do we want to talk
We want
about
to
the
touch on,
flow thing?
yeah, Bill.
Oh,
uh,
It's interesting.
yeah,
It's interesting. It's an interesting angle that Lincoln's taking. I don't know if it's right or wrong. I think
we'll
we're gonna
find
find
out.
out. I mean, it's their business. They have to run what they think is best for them. And if that's we don't know the numbers, right? We don't know what all
Right.
goes into it. So maybe they have no choice. Who knows? From our perspective, I agree. It's kind of unfortunate for like Jimmy, Lincoln's hours from you.
Yeah,
So you
it's
will probably see two Lincoln races this year, and one of them is the icebreaker if it's not 20 degrees.
yeah.
Um, uh, I mean, if Port's not having this problem, they're seemingly
It
okay
sounds
with how
like
things are. Um,
nothing's gonna change there. So
and I
to
even saw on Twitter
possibly say,
today they said nothing. They're not in any kind of dispute on contract. So, and that's from their socials. So I don't know. I think it's interesting.
Eh,
I
I'm
don't.
I'm personally, I know Lincoln has to do what they
And
got
that's
to do.
a key point right there.
Yeah, it's traveling a ton, miss seeing cars, and that they sponsor on the track. There you go, exactly right there. It sucks for the teams. It sucks for the fans. Now they're not completely getting rid of streaming. They're gonna have
Right.
11 some races, pretty much all their biggest events and like one or two weekly shows. I guess it's to get fans out to weekly shows a little bit more. Um, you know, Ashley Capetta right there stinks. I won't get to watch the replay after the races I
Right.
run. Absolutely. I mean, it sucks for the drivers, it
Right.
sucks for the teams, it sucks for the sponsors.
I just wish they would give
But
more
you
content.
gotta also go back just a couple years when we didn't have any of this streaming. We gotten used to it, and now it's like, oh, now you're gonna take a little bit of it away, and it's like, why are you taking away such a good thing? But if it's hurting if Lincoln thinks it's hurting, then I get it. But to me, selfishly, I kind of hope it doesn't work, because that means I think a lot of other tracks will follow suit, and I don't want to see
just
that happen.
wish they would give more context to why. And I don't
Yeah.
know if they can. I don't know if it's non-disclosure, stuff like
It's
that. I
money,
mean,
Chris.
It's definitely
Without
comes down to
saying
the
it.
money.
It's money.
But
Why
what
else
money?
would you not do it?
Yeah.
So I listen. I don't care what people think about me. I have an opinion, and it could be wrong. It's an opinion. I'm a fan. I think
I agree
it's
with everything Ashley's saying so
Yes.
far.
I
But
think
continue
it's
on.
unfortunate for sure. I remember going to Lincoln when the general admission was $12. I remember those days
Mhm.
still. And now again, things change, times change. We pay out more to the winners. We want to, do all these things. It costs more to have these tracks run. They're a business, right? They are a business. If they don't make money, they don't exist. I get it. Totally get it. But I think they need to make sure they've looked in the mirror and they're doing everything they can, regardless of a streaming platform or not, to make sure they're putting asses in the seats.
Yes.
Take a hard look in the mirror and don't blame it on streaming, because there's an appetite around the country that's not Central PA to watch these things. I watch
Yes.
California races all the time. I watch races across the country all the time that I could never travel to and get to on a weekly basis. I love it. I can't
Yes.
get enough
It's
of it.
great.
To simply blame a streaming platform for the lack of gate admission, I think is
Short-sighted.
It's low
lazy.
hanging fruit, right?
It's
It's
lazy and
lazy.
short-sighted.
Potentially, again, this is an opinion. I don't know
Yeah.
anything. I don't have the balance sheet. I don't know their books. I don't know their money. I don't know all of it. But there's times where I go to Lincoln and you see 1, 2, or 3 divisions, and you have 100 total cars there at $30 a head in the pits. Okay, so I'm thinking of the balance sheet right there.
Yep.
Okay, the fans that you get on a weekly show, it's 95 degrees. There's 410s and there's legends. Okay, and you're there from 7:30 to 1 a.m. Right? Like there's a lot of things I hope any of these tracks, I'm not just pointing out Lincoln. Lincoln's the one in the news right now because of it, but I hope all these tracks are looking in the mirror and saying, looking at the benefits of what the streaming can do to get exposure for their facilities,
Hmm.
and not simply going, it's because of them that we're not getting fans in the stands. Because I don't think, I'm going to use Port Royal as a good example. They're not having an issue.
Right.
Hmm.
And Justin was here on the show a few weeks ago and kind of said they're there to build an event. They're not even worried about the streaming. They're there. Their
Every
job
week,
is to
not just
promote
the
the
big
event.
races.
Yes.
Right. They're
Right.
there to build an experience for the people at the track. If you do that, the people are going to come to the track.
Right. And listen, I've been going to Lincoln most of my adult life. We talked about this.
Yep.
I've seen it packed on weekly races. I've seen that happen. Something has changed, okay? And I can't sit here and tell you honest to people's faces and say I think it's just because of flow. I
Mhm.
think that's
It's
unfair.
not. So I
So,
think a lot of people started choosing, one, to save some money, for sure,
sure.
and two, to stay home, to not have to sit there for an 11 p.m. roll off for the first feature. You know what I mean? Getting out of there till 12:30, 1 o'clock, not
Yep.
just for the fans, but for these, God bless these race teams that
And
sit there through
right.
all that. You know what I mean? Because
And you're 100% right. And I will give them credit. They're going to 7 o'clock starts this year
good,
and more 2 division shows.
yeah,
So
that
when I
that
say
should
have they
help.
looked in the mirror, they
Yeah,
have. It's to a point on and listening a little bit. Okay, people I think in around that area have kind of given Lincoln some grief for being stubborn over the years a little bit, and kind of this is our sandbox, right? And we do it the way we want to do it. So I will say that they're listening a little bit here. So um, I'm not going to just completely just kind of shit on them per se, but
right.
the 7 o'clock start, Port Royal 7 o'clock start. How many times I've been at Lincoln, they're announcing the winner at Port Royal before they've rolled the B main off at Lincoln.
Yep.
They're announcing the A main winner.
Or
So
even the
I'll,
fact that
I'll,
Danny can drive the Port Royal to Lincoln and make the
right,
heat race. Like, I mean, I know that's
yeah,
rare, but still, it's happened.
right,
because if I go to Port Royal is a lot closer to me than Lincoln. I could be driving home from Port Royal after the feature's done,
yep.
everything's done, and I could be listening
It's
or
kept me awake
to
many
Lincoln.
nights coming
Yeah,
home, watching
yeah,
the Lincoln race and trying to stay awake, like after a long day, and I'm not even a team and just falling
I
Mhm.
asleep.
think
But
the other thing you talked and about the drivers, I don't want to be there all night, and that's another part of the fan experience. If you're there till 1 or 2 in the morning, one, fans don't want to be there still. You go to the
Right.
pits after the race to meet drivers. Well, they have to get their stuff home to clean
They're
it,
already
get ready.
halfway packed up.
Right. So it just takes away from the whole thing versus you get done at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock and
Mhm.
the teams are still just hanging out because it's not that
Not too
rush to
late.
get to the next place.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a point with the concessions. They close, people stop buying them. You're not staying. What are you keeping people there that long for? They don't really work. When's the last time you saw Lincoln rework a track? They haven't done it in like 2 years. So what's the holdup? What
Yeah.
are we
Yep.
really waiting for here?
Yeah.
They haven't been reworking a track like they used to.
Mm.
How I remember times Grader would be out and reworking the place and lay water, running it back in. They don't. They
don't do that
kudos
anymore.
to Fred Putney and the team because Lincoln has had superb surfaces, in my opinion, the last couple of years without touching them, and we're still there till forever. So it's like, come on, like, so I hate everything about the flow being back down. Um, I guess in their mind, if that's hopefully short term, and they do it, and I know I saw someone write like, why would they only televise the biggest shows? Well, typically at Lincoln, whether you have streaming or not, they fill the seats in those shows.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that capacity, that reserve, the big show. You got a
That's
full
not
crowd.
hurting them.
It's not going
Yeah.
to hurt them in their mind. So I can understand that perspective of it for sure.
Yep. Sean Keane with a great comment here. Finish at 10 p.m. and let the fans and families come to the pits to see their favorite driver miss those days. Yeah, you don't really get that too often
That's
anymore.
why we're all doing this because
Yes.
we grew up in those days.
Yeah, 100%.
And like I said, for me, I'm like 2.5 hours away. I pick and choose when I go to Lincoln once or twice a year. Usually I camp out there or something, or I'll stay. Maybe I'll crash on Chris's couch. But for me, it's a haul, man. But I've been so lucky to be able to follow and know some of these drivers that we're bringing on and stuff like that, because otherwise I probably wouldn't really know. I'd be able maybe I'm gonna have to follow Twitter now and look at results, and then the thing that gets me though is like they're gonna still have somebody there taping the race. You know what I mean? Because they have that big video board. What are they going to do? Just not use it now? You know what I mean? So I don't know. They know
It's a shame too,
what they're doing. So
like Jeremy said, the service is so good. The racing there's pretty good, and week to week is good. And it's a shame that we don't get to showcase that. We showcase how good, like we see how good Port Royal is every Saturday, and we see how good everything else is. You know what I mean? So it's a shame we can't see Lincoln too, like as much anyway.
Yeah, I agree completely. So this weekend we have Volusia.
yes.
Next weekend we're and Super Bowl this weekend. Next weekend I believe is Motorama here in the Harrisburg area. Dirt bikes, four wheelers, the whole Central PA. Motorama. And then after that, what's the next weekend? Icebreaker.
That's Icebreaker, right?
Icebreaker weekend, boys. We're
it is. Oh my God,
Allegedly,
so short.
It is.
Yeah.
Go time. Icebreaker.
Yeah,
weekend.
It is go time.
Port week after that, and it's game on, boys.
Port. We
Grove
got
after that,
Outlaws rolling in town. We got Williams Grove opening up.
And next thing you know, it'll be National Open, and we'll be sad again.
Oh,
no,
stop, man.
Calm down. Slow down, bud. Slow down.
Take it easy, my guy.
This is always an exciting part of the season. I always end up, I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say it that way. But I was blowing my load like too early, like going to every freaking race, and and then it's like it comes to like mid-season. I'm like, man, I probably shouldn't want to. Like, I love going to races, but it hurts the pocketbook sometimes a little bit as a fan.
That's the problem. Is last year I never stopped. That's
same, right?
That sucked in like the best way.
Yeah,
it is. It's like, it's gonna be another long night. I love it.
Another long night, all the food. Hey, we're at Port till 2, camping, whatever.
I'm gonna have to camp a couple times this year. Like, I'm gonna sleep outside of one of y'all's tents on the ground and get up in the morning and drive home because, bro, there's been some
long nights.
Some of those nights that work all day or you're up early and just end up being a long stinking night. So
I could set up an extra. I have a very big tent. I could set up an extra air mattress for you if you want.
Okay, I'm in.
So Volusia this week. We'll probably talk about the results there. any favorites that you got? What are you looking forward to seeing at Volusia this year? I mean, obviously you got new paint schemes, new people with
I
some new
think we'll
teams, I
see.
guess.
The cool part is seeing who's ready to go first, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously getting the bugs worked out. You expect the outlaw teams to unload, like outlaw teams and be ready to rip. I'm curious to see Anthony Macri if he can keep building on how his season went
He looked
last
good at
year.
Volusia in the 360 last week.
Brent Marks, if he continues it, I want to see Danny. I mean, that schedule he put out is a hellacious schedule for Danny. 100 some races, and in order for those things to happen, you got to start off strong, not tearing stuff up. It's early, but still, it's exciting. And then next thing you know, we'll be at high limit and stuff. But I mean, that's what I'm looking at Volusia. Those outlaws and who's ready to hit the ground running and get their year off to a good start.
I agree. Anything else, guys, before we get going?
I think we're good.
That's it, man.
So sorry for anybody who came to see Chalk Guy. He's obviously not here.
MIA.
We'll try to maybe reschedule him in the future.
Or not.
Yeah. But
We'll find out.
We'll find out. Thank you so much again to Wyatt Hinkle. Thank you for everybody here joining. Shout out Keen Motorsports. And yeah.
Stay tuned to the socials. More guests next week. We'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Tonight's second place finisher. Plenty of fans here, Brett, and a solid second place finish.
Yeah, I got to shout out the Turn 2 Terror Boards over there. They're all a bunch of good guys to hang out with, talk to. I really like them.